seems like back then, and even to a big extent today, I think that is very much.
It's still happening. It's
Right.
still happening. I was talking to one of the young girls who's starting to make her own clothing company now because the sponsor she was with dropped her, and she said it just so happens that they dropped her not long after she put on weight.
Wow. It still happens. It's incredible.
It's still happening. And I was so shocked to hear that. But, you know, when I was on tour, I did things like, I don't know if you've seen any pictures, but when I was in the US Open and I kept, I heard from a company, they told my sponsor off record, not my sponsor, sorry, my coach, off record, we're not sponsoring her because she doesn't have the look that we want. And then that's when I thought, bugger you guys, I'll do it on my own. And then I went and dyed my hair blonde. And then I thought you want someone to stand out. So then I started doing a blue mohawk. And then I started even putting glitter all over my face. And then I won the US Open.
I need to find this photo. That sounds amazing. I feel like I've seen a photo maybe in a surfing world. I think they did in.
Yeah, it's somewhere around when I've got my blonde hair. It's around that time when I did that as a joke. And I was trying to find blue contacts as well.
Still to this day. And I think that's what I was kind of coming back to, this idea that corporations, if they can cash out on it, they will go in that direction. And so I'm a little cynical when I see, representation by the corporations, in as much as it's important to see that. I do think, like, for example, I see some of the surf brands, like, especially with longboarding, they will present, women from who have brown skin, but they're from countries where I know that they're not paying them well to model their clothes.
Exactly.
And they're, amazing surfers in their own right. But, I just have this kind of cynical outlook, and it just feels like corporations will only change just on the surface level, but really there's still so much under the surface.
Yeah, it's all about making money at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I think the sponsorship story is really interesting, because I do feel like even if there is equal pay now, it seems the sponsorship money still is grossly unequal, and also still grossly based on those kind of typical old school, like, standards of beauty. It's just like,
that's something that I was really disappointed with some of the new generation is, some girls might feel comfortable with wearing a swimsuit up their butt, but when I saw, to me, that's, if you're surfing really comfortably, shorts is the go, and a swimsuit going up your bum each time you do a turn is not comfortable. And then I feel that I've noticed it's always seems to be the people that are sponsored by certain labels that go with that kind of look.
Right.
And then, I watch Instagram and I see, this whole thing about so much image and looking beautiful and doing the pouting and stuff like that. And I'm like, you don't need to do that. Just surf.
Just looks ridiculous.
Be good surfers. Anyway,
I think all those things, as time goes on, it looks so ridiculous in the lens of the past, like in the same way that the men look so ridiculous and, who said all those dumb things back then. Like, it's just like, oh, you guys.
Can you imagine how everyone's going to laugh at all these pouting pictures when they're older? They're going to be going, oh my God, what was I thinking?
Yeah, I think about how, for example, someone like Tyler right now, she's so outspoken and she gets a lot of flack online from, idiots. And she's very bold and uses her platform in a way to kind of shed light to a lot of discriminations and a lot of things that need that kind of awareness raising. But I do feel like in the future, we'll look back and we'll really celebrate her.
Well, I think too, because a lot of, there's two sides. There's like that, I guess, again, I'm saying the uneducated, but people think, she just needs to surf more instead of being so political. Like, she's gone the other way where she's too political.
Right.
But
I mean, is there a too political? when people are being, when
the people who are quick to say that they're too political are people that don't have the discrimination against them.
Exactly. Exactly.
Let's change into, the people who she's standing up for. Let's see them step into their shoes for just a day and just see what it's like before they have such strong opinions.
I wanted to ask you about, discrimination based on, sexuality, because I think I read that in New South Wales, where Sydney is, that being gay was decriminalized only in 1984, which is astounding. And it seems like in Bondi at that time, or just, I guess in Sydney, there were a lot of hate crimes based on sexuality. And I'm just kind of prefacing that as the context through which, you grew up, as far as knowing what the world was like for gay people. What was it like when you first kind of came to terms with your own sexuality? And I think it was while you were competing, right?
Yeah, so I didn't realize I was gay till quite a bit later, probably in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And I started hanging around gay women. And well, actually, first I was with, I had a few boyfriends, and I had one in particular, and I was laying there just thinking, why is it that I'm so scared to be with guys? I just had this really bad fear and just didn't feel comfortable. And then one day I'm laying there with him, and I'm like, just sort of had this moment, and I'm like, I think I really want to be with women. It kind of just sort of hit me like that.
Right.
And
like a real eureka moment.
Pretty much. And I was already hanging out with Jodie Cooper and that. And then I said to her, like, I think that I might like girls. And she's like, only now you think that? And she's like, I thought that for a long time already.
Wait, so Jodie was out at that time, or she was outed by that time?
She was, yeah. She'd already gone through, people finding her diary and
right.
her getting a hard time. And so she told me about that. And then
and
I'd already been on
film
for a few years. And I just saw how nasty they were to her and how different they were. Like they were never really nasty to her face, but just really homophobic. And then even when I was, I had a couple of people I hung with when I was younger that I surfed at Bondi, and they were all homophobic as well. And they used to always say things like, you stay away from those lesbians, Grommet. And that used to happen quite a lot. And I just saw, a lot of hatred towards them for no reason.
Right.
And then later on in the 90s, it came out on the news that they found that these people that were killed at Bondi was actually a gay hate crime. And one of them just happened to be a guy that I grew up with the family a little bit.
Right.
It was one guy's brother that got murdered. And so it really hit home that, I actually knew someone that had got murdered. And
oh my God.
And there was these two girl surfers that one of them got kicked and hit so bad that she ended up nearly dying because she got like nearly a hole in her lung or something like that. It was a nasty beating.
Wow.
Anyway, that made me realize, wow, like I don't think I'll ever come out publicly because, it's dangerous to come out publicly. And then, hearing about Jodie not getting sponsored, and then finally within the industry, everybody knew I was gay within the industry. They just didn't know publicly. And I could not get a sponsor. So not only, I don't think it was only my look. I think it was because I was gay.
Right.
And it was cool back then to go, well, I sponsor this hot chick, and you know what I mean? It was because they all talk to each other, but they wouldn't want to sponsor a gay woman because that's not cool.
Right. It's again based on these patriarchal kind of definitions of women and femininity, and whether it's the look or it's basically female athletes defined only in relation to men, or desirability, exactly. Or which is a complicated road to travel when you're an athlete. An athlete is based on your abilities, your merits. It's not based on these kind of constructs. It's based on totally. Like how you can compete.
Well, the thing that was really hard too is like I'm a really open person, and you can see like I'll just talk to you like I've known you for 20 years. I'll just say it as it is. And it was really difficult for me to not, I felt like I was always living a lie.
Right.
But I felt that if I told the truth, when I did get sponsored, it was by a company that wasn't totally in the surfing industry, and they didn't know that I was gay. And so I felt like I only got sponsored by that company because they didn't know.
Right.
And within the industry, I was blown away. I was like, how come I'm not getting sponsored? I'm like the world champion.
Yeah, that's
won
shocking.
28 major tournaments. Why aren't I getting sponsored?
I think you have the record for the most wins or something close to that, right? Or the most competitions.
I would be still up there. I mean, it's probably different now, but I was up in the top for a long time with
Right.
Up along with Kelly Slater
Right.
for winning a lot of events. And
Amazing.
thank God I did, because I didn't have the support.
Right.
My mum always taught me there's a positive in every negative. And I think, the negative was I didn't get supported, but I did bloody good because I didn't get supported.
Wow. I mean, it's really, your story is really so awe-inspiring. And especially knowing that there was absolutely no support. That is just mind-blowing. Having someone like Jody as a friend, did that help as far as, just having that support system of just being able to be free, being able to like be who you are, on the tour, someone who's a surfer, who's kind of like your compadre?
Oh, totally. It was like Jodie was amazing to travel with. And there was a couple of other gay girls that we all started to travel with as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of really needed each other in the end, because a lot of the straight girls were like a bit nervous to stay with you because they didn't want to be labeled. They weren't actually against you, but they were scared of being labeled.
Right. Association. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, as time went on, after a while, I just got sick of hiding it. So on tour, I just started to become me. And, for many years, I just liked making people laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, again, because I struggled also having really bad arthritis, I struggled being in pain a lot. So when I felt good, I just really went and had a good time.
Right.
And so that's where the nickname Naughty Paws came from. And I was just always silly. So, 20 years on tour, I still think I had the most fun. Even though I wasn't supported, I had a bloody good time.
Oh, that is so wonderful. Really wonderful. So, I mean, now you're completely living, you're out. And do you feel like there's still any kind of discriminations in Australia, or in the water or near the water in those communities? And, you leave the major cities. Do you feel like people still...
I'm so used to like so many people just not liking it and reacting weird. And like, I'm even used to people, like, you just go to hold your partner's hand and they give you that like triple look. That now, seriously, no one cares, especially where I live.
Yeah.
No one cares. And I still kind of have to, like, I don't know, pinch myself that people are so really don't care what you do or who you are. They're just like
wonderful.
Very accepting now. And after the movie and after so much publicity, like I think I've been on every podcast, TV show, whatever, I've had one hate message, just one, of an uneducated male that just said, I'm spreading my lesbianness around. And I'm like, what do you mean?
All right, right on.
Encourage kids. I'm not spreading that at all. They just asked me about being gay. And I was talking on the show that he talked about saying kids to be you. And I mean that in the sense of be yourself.
Right.
Like, go and be a lesbian. But obviously he took it that way because he's not very well educated. I just said be you because kids are influenced on Instagram to be something they're not.
Right.
And I think about my life, I was always myself. I didn't get supported, but I was very successful. And so that was my message on the show, was to, be yourself. And I thought, how did he get that out of it? But anyway.
Well, I think, there's a lot has changed in society, but I think even still in surf culture and with the idea of sponsorships, there's still a kind of homophobic stigma. I think about, I've heard stories of some female athletes who've remained discreet about their, sexuality. And I think Tyler is probably the only person who's really been outspoken about it, and very visible, which has been wonderful. But yes, Keala. But I meant like, I guess Keala is still on the tour on the big wave side, but because it's still that idea of the image and how people define as, who they're rooting for, who's desirable, it's like corporate sponsorship money that's based on the old guard.
Like there's a lot of older men still within the companies and stuff, but I think once they pass on, things will change for the good, because
I hope so, because the men's side also have a long way to go with regards to that. I think I remember even when the Brazilians started to dominate, there was a lot of kind of racist undertones in terms of how those competitors were perceived. And now that they're dominating, everyone's just jumping on the bandwagon, like they just can't believe what they're seeing on the tour as far as the competitions and the performances.
I know they're getting absolutely annihilated, and now they're saying that they're getting ripped on. It's like, hello, they're absolutely amazing. Let's see any of you do a turn close to what they're doing.
Exactly.
But it's the same thing that happened to me. Like when I had there was lots of heats where it was really close, and I always seemed to sort of lose out and felt like I was getting scored down because I was gay or whatever, but I just still kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And, and in the end, I won so many events because it just made me a stronger person.
Was there any part of this kind of strength that you had? Did any of that come from your mother? Like,